Welcome to the state of Ohio. I'm Karen Kassler. 30 years ago this week, one of the longest prison riots in U.S. history finally ended after 11 days. 400 inmates from 3 gangs at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville held that prison for nearly 2 weeks. And when the siege was over, 1 guard and 9 inmates were dead. Statehouse correspondent Jo Ingles takes a look back at the riot and its lasting impact.
No, I thought I was going to die. I mean, it's just that simple. There was quite a few times throughout the riot that there's situations and developments that were occurring that I thought I would not make it out.
It took a long time really to dawn on us. All of us, I'd say, that this is a full-scale riot.
Trouble began on Easter Sunday as simmering tensions erupted over a new warden with new rules, tuberculosis tests containing alcohol which upset Muslim inmates, and severe overcrowding.
You know, we had probably double the capacity of a maximum security prison. The way it was constructed, it was more like a medium security physical plant than a maximum security one. There was too much movement for persons who were that high risk.
Jim Oddie was a reporter for TV station WHIO in Dayton.
Because of all that came before the riot, Lucasville was like a powder keg with so much pressure, and it just took one spark to set it off.
Mike Hensley hid in a stairwell, but was taken hostage by prisoners, as was guard Daryl Clark.
There's not a day that don't go by that I don't think about this. I mean, there's no way a person could.
They wanted to kill somebody, but they just couldn't make up their mind which one.
The rioters also took other prisoners hostage over the 11-day siege. 9 inmates and 1 guard were killed.
I can report to you, is everyone here? I can report to you that a 6th inmate body has been recovered. We have not notified the next of kin.
I'm freaking out, you know. You got a brother down there, and what is going on, you know. And but, yeah, those were some hard days.
Jackie Bauer's brother, George Skates, was one of the inmates inside. He'd been sent to Lucasville for a murder in 1982. Skates was one of the so-called Lucasville Five, the ringleaders. Skates served as the spokesman for inmates on a broadcast that aired during the riot on a local radio station.
Because we are not going to bow down, we are not going to give up, we are going to remain no matter what they put on us. If we die, we die.
Meanwhile, state leaders were handling the riot from Columbus. Current Governor Mike DeWine was then Governor George Voinovic's lieutenant governor and served as the point person during the ordeal.
You know, it's a unique situation because when you look at it from a communication point of view, the prisoners, you know, were listening to the radio. The prisoners were getting TV, and so anything that was put out, you know, they got. And then, you know, very quickly this turns into a negotiation with hostages. And the goal, the prime goal, really the goal was to save lives and to, you know, be able to protect the lives of everybody in there.
As the riot dragged on, National Guard members were brought in to join the state troopers and other law enforcement.
Yeah, it was spent, you know, 16 hours a day. Although, as the riot became older in terms of number of days, the prisoners actually established a schedule. And so, like at 6 o'clock, they wouldn't negotiate anymore. They were done for the day. And so that was kind of interesting to watch them get into a pattern. The FBI had very sophisticated listening equipment that they had drilled up into the floor of the room where they were doing the negotiations from. So we could hear what was being said when they weren't negotiating.
And even after Corrections Officer Bobby Vallandingham was strangled by inmates and his body was thrown into the recreation yard, storming the prison was not something state leaders were willing to do.
There was a tremendous amount of pressure, as you'll remember, to storm the prison. And particularly after Officer Vallandigham died, you can imagine people in not just in the community, but throughout the state were demanding that we go in. And the governor, to his credit, resisted that and stayed focused on how do we protect the lives, how do we save the most lives. I think if you look at other examples where there's a storming of a prison, those are very high-risk situations as far as the deaths of the hostages.
Journalists from around the country descended on the prison, joining the ones who had been camped there since the beginning, and under pressure from their outlets were frenetic, looking for updates to report.
Because not much information came from official sources, we tried. We tried and tried. We tried to get whatever we could see from different angles.
John Remy, former reporter for WTVN Radio in Columbus, found an unusual angle.
I climbed a tree one afternoon for the 3 o'clock news, and people are laughing at me. "Oh, Remy, what are you doing up there?" And I got up there and I was able to see into the grounds of the penitentiary, and I was starting to get a little bit of better view of things. And all of a sudden, I wasn't so crazy, and there were people trying the same thing.
People in the neighborhood, near and far, started to come and tell us what they had heard through the grapevine of what was going on inside the prison through the corrections officers who were going to work. A lot of that was not accurate. There were rumors, a lot of rumors.
The media blackout helped fuel inflated numbers of dead prisoners, terrible stories of torture, and other false reports. The lawyer negotiating for the inmates said they believed the state had planted the stories. In hindsight, DeWine suggested the prisons department should have given the media more, yet careful information.
So I think probably, having the director out there, maybe even having the warden out there talking to the press every day, they still would have been extremely careful in what they said, but that probably would have dealt with some of the rumors.
After 11 long days, negotiations paid off. The inmates surrendered on a long 7-hour live broadcast on a Cincinnati area TV station. A few days later, reporters began to survey the damage inside.
I was the TV pool reporter. I and a photographer, we were allowed in. Imagine anything and everything that wasn't bolted down was tossed out of all of the cells and piled up in the common areas. Everything was destroyed. Radios and TVs, those were broken. Everybody's personal belongings, their books and photos, family scrap albums were tossed around everywhere. I remember walking down a hallway and seeing written in, it might have been paint, it might have been blood, in big letters, "Convict Unity." And a chill went through me.
The disturbance in some respects was a wake-up call, not just for the Department of Corrections, but for the state of Ohio.
State leaders say the lessons learned here 3 decades ago at Lucasville are still having an impact on Ohio's prison system.
Probably the biggest thing that took place following the riot was a reconstruction of the cell blocks. For example, the correction officer station was among the inmates previously. We built new enclosed stations, for them with escape hatches, following that they could go up through the ceiling to escape if a disturbance did take place. We had new rules regarding movement and classification of persons.
Cynthia Davis is now the warden at Lucasville. She says there's no more double bunking in cells, and she says there's a focus on programs now, recognizing that of the 21,000 incarcerated people who leave Ohio prisons each year, About 24 of them are leaving Lucasville every month.
We have recovery service programs. We have Sinclair College has been implemented here. We do the GED programs. We do decision points, just cognitive behavioral programming, to help the individuals deal with some of their thinking.
Inmates have painted murals in the reading nook area where small children visit with family members. And unlike 1993, when inmates got to place one phone call to family members at Christmas time, they now get to make those calls more often. 300,000 calls were logged from the facility in March alone. And inmates have painted a hallway in tribute to veterans who have served in a variety of ways through a variety of conflicts. This year, a short ceremony was held in Lucasville to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the riot. A wreath was laid to honor slain prison guard Robert Van Landingham. His friend, Darrell Logan, was one of the guards at the prison and was on the SWAT team during the riot. He's getting ready to retire soon. He says the prison is safer now, and he thinks inmates are being treated better.
They're human beings. I mean, they're just like us. They just, made a mistake, and they're behind bars, and we're not.
And inmates convicted of being involved with the riot are serving extra time or have been sentenced to death, including Skates, who was found guilty of 3 riot-related murders. His sister maintains he's innocent and continues to fight for his freedom.
It hurts me to think that I'll never be able to go anywhere with my brother again, like we were when we were younger or anything. And then he has to die for someone else, that did it.
The disturbance in some respects was a wake-up call, not just for the Department of Corrections, but for the state of Ohio.
And guards are hoping that wake-up call will be put into action.
That way we don't relive the tragic, the death and destruction ever again, in my opinion. It just don't affect staff. It affects their families, it affects the community, it affects everybody.
Jo Ingles, Statehouse News Bureau.